back to P3. Albert Einstein is best known for his landmark scientific research, but he definitely had other aspects of his life that would keep the tabloids busy today if he were still alive. We find out more in the second part of my interview with Professor Hanak Gutfried, former president of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Einstein expert. Take me into Einstein's life outside of the science, outside of the lab. What was he like as a family man? Did he have mistresses? Did he have secrets?
Well, this is a story that deserves some remarks.
Okay.
There is a whole, he was married to 2 women. There were other women to whom he was not married. His first fiancée, his first wife, was one of the first students in physics in Europe. This was a passionate love affair. But just as the love affair was passionate, so the alienation that occurred a few years later and the divorce was very bitter. Then there was a second marriage to his cousin Elsa, which is more a marriage of convenience. With Elsa, he lived until she died in 1936. He adopted her 2 daughters. But during both marriages, there were other amorous adventures. And that only shows that Einstein was a human being, like many of us.
Right, other amorous relationships. I like that. Talk to me about Einstein as a spiritual person, as a person not just of mind but of faith.
Einstein was not a believer in the ordinary sense of the word. He was a Jew, and he was grateful to his fate for being a Jew, because he perceived Judaism as a set of values, the values of the prophets, the pursuit of justice, the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, a long tradition of learning. And this is for that he believed that he was very fortunate to belong to this nation. It is because of that he joined the Zionist movement and adopted the quest of the Jewish people to strive for a cultural revival in the place where they first appeared, on the natural arena, on the arena of history.
It's amazing because there's a connection between his Zionist passion and also his connection with the birth of the Hebrew University.
Exactly.
Because he was there in 1925 when he gave this lecture.
Even before that.
Tell me about his connection with the Hebrew University. It's really interesting.
Before that, because once he realized that this kind of Jewish nationalism, this quest for culture and national revival, is a necessity, is the only way that the Jewish communities can cope with anti-Semitism, by reviving the kind of self-confidence, the kind of national solidarity that would give them strength. And then, when he joined the Zionist movement, he made it immediately clear that his most prominent involvement in that movement will be his devotion to the idea to establish a Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He perceived that as the most exciting event in his life, as the most interesting event happening in this area since the destruction of the Second Temple.
Wow, I mean, it's a massive statement to say that.
And since 1919, until his death, until 1955, his devotion to the Hebrew University was his most enduring commitment outside of physics.
Wow. To have that legacy, that this university is so deeply connected with Einstein, that for Einstein this was his deepest love, was to create a legacy through this institution of learning, is something that I'm sure you...
That is something that is our greatest privilege. It is also a great responsibility, Because in 1950, when he sat down to write his last will and testament, he bequeathed to the Hebrew University all his wealth. And his wealth is only his intellectual wealth. There was nothing else. And this is what constitutes today the Albert Einstein Archives, a collection of between 60 to 70,000 items, letters, manuscripts, correspondence with peers, photographs, all of that shedding light on Einstein, the man, the scientist, the humanist, the Jew, a great cultural and intellectual phenomenon. And by bequeathing that to the Hebrew University, he made us the eternal home of his intellectual legacy. And this is the great privilege, and as I said, a great responsibility, because we are now sharing it with the entire world through exhibitions, through workshops, by allowing scholars to visit and study, by cooperating with institutions abroad to publish those archives, to put them into a digital form that will be accessible to everybody. This is how we share this great, immense cultural treasure with the entire world.
In 1952, Albert Einstein was offered the presidency of Israel. Explain that story. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that indeed is a very exciting story, a part of the history of the baby state of Israel. In 1952, the first president of the state of Israel, Professor Chaim Weizmann, himself a scientist, a friend of Albert Einstein, died. And the prime minister of the state, David Ben-Gurion, wanted to offer the presidency to Albert Einstein. And he thought that Albert Einstein was the most prominent Jew alive, who did not deny his identity, but was rather proud of it. He also wanted to demonstrate the fact that this new state of Israel is based on science and education. He was a little concerned. What would we do if he says yes, right, said David Ben-Gurion. So we already understand why he thought that he had to offer it to him. He was a little concerned because Einstein was very uncompromising, outspoken individual who maybe could have said things from the podium that could be embarrassing to a man like David Ben-Gurion. Einstein did not disappoint Ben-Gurion, and in a very warm, emotional letter, he writes to David Ben-Gurion how much he is moved by this offer by our state of Israel, but then he says, I know very little about nature. I know nothing about human beings. How can I be in such a position of leadership? The fact was that he was already ailing, that is 3 years before his death. And this did not materialize. But the very fact that he was offered adds something, a little drama, to the early history of the State of Israel.
Well, thank you very much for the conversation.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Coming up next on P3, I talk with a PhD student who accidentally stumbled upon a discovery that one day may cure cancer.